Hey, what's up everybody? This is Nicole. Sorry I've been just busy. I mean, life happens. As I said, I'd be making less videos and I can just read you a list of what I gotta do in the coming weeks. So, if I go into Blackboard on my UMBC website, I mean, this is all the stuff I gotta do. And, or you know what? I can just pull up one of my syllabi if you want an example here. So I go to my political research methods syllabus, and well, there's research methods syllabus fall 2013. Because long story short, I had to retake the class, and part of that had to do with some stuff going on at the time. Part of it had to do with my ADD, and for some reason right now my computer is being a total mess. It won't open the syllabus, and there we go. And I still use Microsoft Office Word 2003, by the way. I've used 2007 before and 2010 once or so, and I really think that there's this, well, first there's this principle called the Peters Principle of Potential, and it actually opened twice, by the way, the syllabus, that is. And so this is what I got coming into next week alone, just for the Poly 301 class, or political research methods. So we're focusing on political science concepts such as validity and reliability, and we got to read the second half of the chapter that our professor wrote for that week to be read, and then we got to reread one of her papers. No, actually we got to read one of her papers, and we got to reread some papers that we already read, and then we're going to do some interviews for some case studies, and as far as the due dates go for some papers that we're working on. And by the way, this is how many classes I have. Okay, so 5 classes. I could write you off the list, but I think that would be missing the point. And in terms of being a student, by the way, I can tell you that in one sense, I'm not looking forward to graduating college, just for the mere fact that if the government shuts down everything, including student loans, everything's just going to be affected. And as it is, who knows what tomorrow holds? So if I don't even know what tomorrow holds, although I can guess, although I have plans, if I don't know what tomorrow holds, then how am I going to know whether or not I'm going to be able to get a job and pay off my student loans? Anyway, as far as the political research methods class, this is what I got planned for the coming weeks. And so we have to write a research paper, and I already talked about the readings and stuff. So the first assignment for the paper is due in the coming week, October 3rd, and then the second part of the paper is due October 17th, and then the paper itself, after we do some case studies, aka interviews, is November 14th. Then we do the first assignment for the second major paper that we gotta do. That's due November 28th. Second full paper is December 10th, and the final exam, we don't know when that is yet. But I mean, when you're a student in college like I am, especially if you have ADD like I do, and you got other stuff going on, life just gets busy. And speaking of just life getting busy and all that in life, and having ADD and some of the other stuff that I do, I experienced one of those caffeine headaches again. And as far as the pump, by the way, we found out that what I really just have in terms of some of the pain that I've been having in my back and all that is muscular pain. That's why I have the pillow behind me. And let me switch over to the camera real quick. I guess if I just put the camera down a little more, well, let's see if you can see the pillow. Yeah, you could kind of, if I move, okay, let me move this way. So you can, okay, because then my right shoulder's blocking it. Well, if you kind of see the blue and green thing, never mind, you can't see it. What am I talking about? By the way, okay, so let's see, right, left. Okay, so over my right shoulder then are the 3 bears. By the way, they say shalom. Well, if teddy bears could talk. And, you know, when you are especially living in times like this, you know, sometimes you wish it could. But anyways, that's another discussion. And let's see. So, I mean, I've obviously been following the news. I followed what ended up, I think, and I agree with others, it just ended up being a ridiculous filibuster. It was a waste of federal time, federal money, and Ted Cruz could have just simply shut up, voted, and said, hey, this is the way I voted, this is why I voted, I wasn't going to filibuster, and just do all this ridiculous stuff on government time and government money when I was supposed to be representing the people. He obviously chose to instead filibuster and waste government time, government money, and people's attention spans. So, there's also the thing about the UN Arms Treaty, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on, obviously, and we are definitely living in some interesting times, I'll say that much. And what else can you say? I mean, even just some of the headlines, if you want to go to a news site for yourself, but I'm just going to go to Fox News. Okay, no evidence that Obamacare hurts jobs. Okay, whatever. Obama is just unfortunately being Obama again. The Iranian media said that CNN was being inaccurate. And the weird part is, the Iranian media said that Rouhani did not acknowledge the Holocaust. And to be fair, unfortunately, the Iranian media is right on this one, because Rouhani said, whatever criminality, as if the Holocaust didn't happen. He should have said decriminality. And of course, criminality in terms of the Holocaust is quite an understatement. The Holocaust was, at the very least, nothing more than ethnocide. And at the very, for lack of a better term, very most or very worst, you can't even describe the Holocaust. You can't even describe. Because the Holocaust, we think that it ended in 1945. It really didn't end until 1953. And that's because in 1933, and you could even say 1929, because that's when the Great Depression began, and then Jews started getting blamed for the Great Depression and what have you, and then so the Holocaust is acknowledged to have begun in 1933, although one could say it really began in 1929. And then World War II ended in 1945, but that did not mean that the gulags had gone away in Soviet Russia. And up to 30 million people, or even more, were murdered in the gulags. And Stalin did not like Jews either, so how many victims of the Holocaust there were? We can't even count. In terms of the numbers just in Germany and just whatever the Nazis occupied, we say 6 million, but 6 million is just a grave underestimate. And then as far as the 30 billion victims, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I guess I could just pull them up. Okay, so how many, I'm just going to type in real quick, how many Jews did Stalin murder? Okay, how many Jews did Stalin have killed? Unfortunately, they're using the wrong word there. Stalin didn't, because when you say kill, you're saying, oh, it's like hunting a deer, or oh, it's like, having to do something to the criminal that broke into your house. So, the correct term is, how many Jews did Stalin murder? I hope that, oh, good, so people have actually searched that. How many, well, unfortunately it says how many people did Stalin have murdered and how many people Stalin murdered. It doesn't acknowledge that Stalin was particularly an anti-Semite, and okay, and they're also saying, okay, oh, well, check that out. According to the IB Times, not exactly sure what that is, but okay, it's the International Business Times. So how many people did Joseph Stalin murder? He murdered roughly, let's see, it says how many people is Stalin responsible for murdering. The numbers are estimated at anywhere between 20 and 60 million, and unfortunately I can't find any numbers. Let's say, okay, how many people? Okay, there we go. Let's see. According to Ask.com, Stalin murdered, for lack of a better term, Stalin murdered at least the same amount of Jews as Hitler. And it says that Stalin had intended to murder all Jews. And let's see, the answers are, let's see, this is very hard to even estimate. Numbers indicate it was probably over 1 million, no, possibly much higher. And, okay, how many Jews did Stalin murder? Lots of them. That really doesn't give you a number. Well, it says Stalin did not intentionally target Jews in one answer, although it says in another answer Stalin did intend to kill or murder all Jews. In this case, I'm going to be, for lack of a better term, I hate to use this term, but I'm going to be safe and go with, like I said before, that Stalin was an anti-Semite, and that he, wanted to murder all Jews. And I can tell you, I had relatives murdered by Stalin, as I found out. I mean, that's not something, it's not a joke, it's not something that, even if I type in list of Stalin's victims, let's see, list of Stalin's victims, I mean, I could just pull up the sheer numbers as I'm talking about all this. See, a list of Jewish Belarusian victims, and victims of Stalin, Jewish Gen, and unfortunately, I don't think any of my relatives are going to be on there because they were not counted as Jews, or maybe they weren't known at all in terms of, let's see, this is Jewish Gen, Belarus, let's see, Chernyavsky. So I'm not seeing any of my relatives who are named on there. It was last updated 2004, and someone decided to get a little nasty, I guess, because it says this data has been selected and transliterated from a Russian language database available at Corbina.net, and then he says, quote-unquote, shooted Jews. Well, first of all, that sounds very flip, and second, he might want to check his English, regardless of whether or not it's flip. And in terms of, I mean, if I wanted to specifically type in just how many victims in terms of Stalin total, let's see, and I did type that in. Let's see. I can just keep pulling this up, and I do not see my relatives on the list. And okay, so as far as I know, I had no relatives who were murdered by Stalin in Belarus at the time. Although I did have relatives who were murdered, and well, it's kind of, obviously it's sobering to look at, and it's, nerve-wracking, and I mean, just to think that someone could be as cruel as Stalin. And so both, I guess, for lack of a better term, both fortunately and unfortunately, I don't see any of my relatives in the Belarusian list that I can see. And so someone also asked a really flip question. Let's see, somehow it seemed that Jewish victims of Hitler were more important than the millions of peasants killed by Stalin and Mao, plus all their little wannabe whatevers. Well, again, Stalin and the Nazis were committing ethnocide, particularly against Jews. So, I mean, that's been on my mind a lot too, in terms of, did the Holocaust really end in 1945, and now we know that, unfortunately, that the Holocaust did not end in 1945. It ended in 1943. And also, if I ever, by the way, just for incidentals, if I ever become a radio talk show host, then I'm going to have to, okay, there's a DNA database. Oh dear. Exhumation work is underway at Polish cemeteries to gather DNA samples of victims of the Stalinist regime. In one way that might be good, in another way that might be bad. And it's hard to say, because at the same time that I want my relatives to rest in peace, it could also be the closure that's really needed. And maybe my relatives who weren't recognized as Jewish relatives who were murdered in the Holocaust will finally be recognized as such. And, by the way, just, again, what I was going to say incidentally is that when I become a radio talk show host, if I ever do become one, I'm going to have to be doing a lot of this, just pulling up sheer numbers and whatever. And anyway, that's just, I guess that's just a rant about that. And when I really get into a topic, I obviously really get into a topic, and if I wanted to, just for the sake of, admittedly because I was being lazy before, so Andrulevich, Stanislav, Iosif was one of the, oh, for goodness sakes, was one of the victims of the Holocaust. Andrushkevich, Stanislav, Jozef, and, well, they listed him before. It's amazing that they're trying to act like, let's see, maybe I just have to type his, maybe I have to type his last name last and then his first name first and what have you, because I typed the last name then the first name. Okay, there we go, I think. Unfortunately not. I guess I have to type Stanislav Joseph Andrulovich. I know that he was one of the particular victims that I did find in the database for Stephen Morse's website when it was still open. And incidentally, as I'm doing the research, by the way, I find that I have relatives in New York. Well, we pretty much went everywhere at that point. For lack of a better term, we kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, we were kind of scattered all over the place. So, and it's, for some reason, being a pain in the butt. And I do not know why this is. And what are you guys thinking at my point that, you know, obviously for one thing this turned into much more of a subject than I was going to really, it was just one of the subjects that I was obviously thinking about, and one of the subjects that I was going to, you know, kind of update on and, you know, really ask questions about, but obviously it got way more into, for lack of a better term, I guess a rant that I didn't realize that I was going to be going on. Let me try this. Andrulovich, Stalin victim, and then I can pull up some of the ones that were also Margevich's, and let's see. Nature survey 28. Okay. And Stalin. Okay. Bolovich. You know what, maybe it's Iosif Stanislav. I'm gonna try that, but I recall it being Stanislav Iosif. And it is just being a pain. And and well, there's that one Latvian website that I'm risking my head for lack of a better term, because why go to Stalin's victims, I'm gonna try Stalin's Victims Database, and let's see if they have it. And Victims of Stalin, search Gulag Database. They had one in it's like Latvia. Communist Crimes Database. Okay, they had one called like memory.latvia or something. So, Latvian Names Project. Victims Return. And, well, when I find names, I'll obviously post them in the description to the video, and I'll also post a link to the website, because even though it's a Latvian website, and I don't like going to websites that are of anti-Semitic countries, I guess unfortunately been a little more lax on that. Like, for example, Libya, I've gone to the .ly websites and what have you, but that's that. And like I said, I guess the whole point, besides getting into a rant about, for lack of a better term, I guess a rant about just, did the Holocaust really end in 1945 and how Stalin was part of the Holocaust and all that. I obviously did do some updating too, so, well, there you go.